Johnny Walker here, a packed programme tonight with some very special guests and one or two surprises.
And it's in that studio that I'm hoping to waylay one of the most successful musicians in the UK charts. Our hero began his career in heavy metal as an apprentice engineer in Scotland, but for the past 25 years, he's gone through a flamboyant range of musical styles. In 1976, he was a pin-up with Teeny Boppers. Then it was rough trade with a punk group. He went into heavy rock. And he was a pioneer of the new romantic movement. Perhaps his most publicised achievement was a Christmas hit co-written with Bob Geldof, which helped to raise £9 million for a very good cause. With Bob, he went on to organise Live Aid, the biggest ever global charity event, which raised over £75 million to combat world hunger. Sir Bob.
Michael.
Right, we're talking about a top man, aren't we?
He's a great guy. He's hilariously funny, though you wouldn't know that from his old new romantic posing, and prior to that, in fact, pouncing about Glasgow in what I believe can be honestly described as a baseball outfit. He's got a great heart and just an all-round good bloke.
As you know, he's doing himself a favour now with his new album on the Johnny Walker Show. So if you would like to cut him off at the pass, I'll be right behind you.
Let's do it.
Did you get a call from Bob Geldof, or how did that come about, the two of you working together?
I was on the tube.
Hello, there's a surprise. Speaking of your man Bob Geldof, what's he doing here?
What's this?
I did.
All right.
It's payback time. I waited 15 years. Tonight, Midge, you are going to look a complete prat.
Oh,
no! Well, yes, I needed a bit of Live Aid on this one, so Bob has come ahead of me so that I could say tonight, Midge Ure, this is your life.
Oh, God.
Well, Mitch, here's your backup. Friends from the music business, Heaven 17's Glenn Gregory, Mark King from Level 42, Howard Jones, Chris Cross from Ultravox, Bruno Brooks, and your manager for 20 years, Chris Morrison. Your family, your mum, Bet, and your dad, Jim, your brother, Bobby, and your sister, Linda. And with your eldest daughter, Molly, and her sister, Kitty, your partner for the past 10 years, Sheridan Forbes.
Hello,
Sheridan, Midge first saw you in a television advert.
Yes, that's right. He saw me in an advert years before he met me, and it wasn't until about 6 months after we were going out that he realised that it was me. And he was like, oh, gosh, I really liked you. I said to all my friends, I can't believe that's you.
No, what I actually said was, I need one of them.
And he's a useful man about the house, I'm told.
That's right. He does all the cooking, cooks me a meal every night.
New man.
He's a new man, yes. And he's a really hands-on father, and he's always there for the kids all the time, and he's really proud of them, and, you know.
Good lad. Midge Ure, this is your life, and you've come a long way since your parents spent £2 on your first guitar when you were a 10-year-old in Glasgow. It was a useful present because you've gone on to collect #1 hits, golden discs, and Ivor Novello and Grammy Awards. Let's chart your success.
I made you a promise, I vowed I would keep. The candle still burning, the river runs deep. I'm talking about rich kid. This guy's too much for you. I stood the test of time and took the step to find Love Street adventure. If I was a painter, I'd paint a world
In 1984, that Band-Aid hit became the biggest-selling British single ever. It raised £9 million for starving Africans, and the man who wrote it with you is Bob Geldof. Thanks for your help, Bob. Now, why did you go to Midge to help you with Band-Aid?
Paula was doing a show called The Tube up in Newcastle, a rock show, and I'd seen the BBC thing, so I gave her a ring, and I said, "Who's doing the show?" And she said, you know, Midge. I said, "Oh, I'll stick him on the phone," and literally he was the first one on the phone. So I said the thing I wanted to do, and he came up with this ridiculous idea, and I just went along with it. But it was fortuitous, and it was, I'm very glad of it.
Bob, thank you. Now, Midge, you've had many #1 hits, but the single that fans tend to remember most vividly is this one from 1981, Vienna.
The feeling is gone, only you and I, it means nothing to me. This means nothing to me. Oh, Vienna.
Surprisingly, though it spent 14 weeks in the singles charts, Vienna never got higher than #2. Well, who wants to be #1? We will find out now from the man with all the answers, your friend Chris Tarrant.
OK, Midge, you're of Bath. Let's play Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? In February 1981, which artist beat Ultravox's Vienna to the #1 spot in the UK charts? Was it Keith Harris and Orville the Duck, the Orville song? Joe Dolce's Shut Up in Your Face? Sheb Wooley's Purple People Eater? Or the Wurzels Combine Harvester? I can't help you, but you do know the answer, don't you, Midge? You think it was Joe Dolce. It's absolutely correct. You were beaten by Joe Dolce. Shut up in your face, which is what everybody in the country said when we heard the record. You just won £1 million. Now, as for this £1 million, Midge, we don't want to give you that. In fact, I can't give you that. Actually, it's more than my job's worth. But you do go away from here, from all of us, with £1 million worth of respect. Mate, over the years, your music has given fans like me an enormous amount of pleasure, and I'm really lucky enough to call myself one of your close friends. Even our kids like each other, and they're awful. There's no pop star moody about you. You're a great talent. You've contributed a huge amount to music and charity all around the world, and you remain a really nice, warm and generous man and a great friend. And that is my final answer. Have a great night. Good night.
Midge, alias James Ure, you were born in a one-bedroom flat in the Cambuslang district of Glasgow on October the 10th, 1953. You're the middle child of Jim and Betty Ure. There you are, on the right, with Bobby and Linda, just before your career took off. When you're 5, you move to a council house in Buckingham Street. You go to Cambuslang Primary and then Rutherglen Academy. Bobby, Midge was always keen on music.
I remember a time after we got this Spanish guitar, where an insurance agent would call once a fortnight to relieve my parents of money, and in the process also teach us a few chords on the guitar. But his guitar playing prowess certainly picked up from then.
Well, you were winning awards from the start. Your primary school ran an annual Robert Burns talent competition. And when you were 10, you carried it off with your version of My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose. There is your certificate. You leave school at 15 and you beat off 200 other applicants to win an engineering apprenticeship at the National Engineering Laboratory in East Kilbride.
That's because of the aunt who worked there got me in.
Well, it's a start. Your heart was still in music, but you do well all the same. You passed 2 City and Guilds before you're 17, but at the weekends you get out your guitar. In 1969, you're playing the church halls of Glasgow in a group called Stumble.
And sometimes we even got paid.
Band members from 24 years ago, fellow stumblers Alex Baird, Alan Wright, Kenny Ireland and Gordon Apicella. Alex, to mark tonight, you've brought Midge a wee present.
Indeed, a wee present. This,
Is it a bill?
this, when you started getting more serious about music, you got yourself, we were just playing in bands, you got yourself a tape recorder, decided you were going to write songs and do it properly. And well, there's the proof, you've done it. But in the beginning, you were very proud of those songs. You sent me this tape, and I'm really sorry I've held on to this for 30 years. I should have given you it back. But you even wrote the words out in your own fair hand. And there's the tape back. You never know, you might decide to use this again. Because and he did it in his bedroom. He was doing all this stuff in his bedroom, you know, in his own time. And you can tell it's in the bedroom, because right at the end, as it's fading out, you can hear the ice cream van going up the road. Outside the window.
Well, thanks for mentioning it. We have made a recording for ourselves from that, and
no.
Here it is.
Oh, yeah.
If I get you back, I'll never let you go.
Could have been a #1. Thank you very much. In 1970, you find deliverance from the daily grind in the shape of a band called Salvation.
And that's when we made you change your name.
It's co-Salvationist Kenny Hislop. So, Kenny, you can give us a bit of pop history.
Yeah, well, in those days you had to create an image. And just before Slick, he said, well, we've got 2 Jims in the band, we can't have that. So we turned Jim backwards, which is M-I-J, but M-I-D-G's posher, and it looks better in posters. And then with clothes problem, you couldn't get any good clothes in Glasgow in those days, so your mum was sitting up all night with a sewing machine, remember that? Yeah. And then you had to get a big guitar sound, so it was effects pedals. Yeah. And one particular night, you dived back into your speakers and they all collapsed on top of you. To this day, I reckon your mum's padded shoulders saved your life.
Kenny, thank you very much. It was in 1974 that Salvation reformed and changed their name to Slick. Tiger Tim Stevens was a DJ on Radio Clyde. He used to play your early records. Slick was the Glasgow version of Edinburgh's Bay City Rollers, and you get to the top of the British charts in January 1976 with the confident title Forever and Ever. Although you've had 2 hits, the band is strapped for cash, and Slick disbands in September 1977. But in October, you get an invitation from London to join the punk-ish band Rich Kids.
But you made us hang around Loch Ness for hours before you made your mind up.
It's the band's drummer, Rusty Egan. Rusty, Rich Kids was a bit of a culture shock for Midge.
Yeah, he had to leave Glasgow, leave his family, leave all his friends, everything he'd known, come down to London and stay in a tiny little bedsit. And we got... he made that decision to make that move, which I think was amazing. Join this filthy punk band. Do all these horrible gigs where everybody spat at us and threw bottles at us. And we became very close in that band, and we started Visage together. And from then on, we've remained really good friends, and he's been a great mate to me.
Rusty, thank you. In July 1979, you answer an emergency call from Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy when they lose a guitarist halfway through an American tour. And that must have been a bit tricky for you, surely.
It was very daunting, because I'd never been to America before. They were in the middle of this tour, and they stuck me on Concorde. And it was before Walkman, so I had a great big ghetto blaster on my knee, and a pile of tapes and a list of the songs that they were doing in the current set. And Concorde gets to America pretty fast, and I was desperately trying to learn all these songs. And within 24 hours of getting a call or something, I was on stage with Thin Lizzy in New Orleans. It was great.
Yeah, we'll hear more about that, because Scott Gorham, you were in Thin Lizzy, of course, and Midge was lucky to survive that American tour.
Well, yeah. The truly frightening bit came just before the gig backstage, and we were all getting dressed, right? And Phil always dressed in the, you know, the tight leather trousers, you know, the studded belts, you know, the black shirts, the whole deal, you know, the necklaces, and I was always in, you know, the black and the hair deal, right? I remember turning around looking at you, and there you are. You're sitting at the ironing board, ironing this pink little shirt. And I thought, okay. But then the truly frightening bit came, right? Does anybody remember the Walt Disney movie Aladdin? Those were the trousers. Right? Yellow. But we went out, and we did the show. He got an amazing ovation for being able to stand in with us, and I think I started wearing yellow after that myself.
And Phil Lynot's widow, now Caroline Taraskiewicz, is here. In November 1979, you joined Ultravox. It's the height of the new romantic movement, and the band wins worldwide fame. Two other new romantics, Martin and Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet, recall those heady days.
Hi, Midge. I just wanted to tell you what a fantastic inspiration you were to Spandau Ballet in the early 80s. Everything you did, from the Rich Kids to Visage to Ultravox, paved the way for the Spandau Ballet sound, and I am very grateful for that. But apart from work, you really are one of the nicest blokes I've ever met in the music business, and I'm very proud to be able to call you a friend. Have a great evening tonight.
The first time I ever saw you was down at this strange club called Billy's, full of beautiful, different people, which in the end spawned the whole movement that became New Romantic. And in many ways, that little pencil moustache you had defined the 80s. The day of Band Aid was an extraordinary day, a room full of egos, and the fact that you're the most self-effacing musician in this business, that you deflated us all and got us all to contribute to something which I'm proud to say went on to save millions of lives. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you, and obviously bogged that day. You deserve this tribute. Have a wonderful evening.
You meet model Annabelle Giles, and you marry in 1984. Your eldest daughter, Molly, is born 3 years later. Ultravox are not your only excursion into the charts. You also find success with No Regrets, your first release as a solo artist. But something momentous was about to happen. In October 1984, television viewers across the nation were horrified by Michael Burke's report on the drought in Ethiopia.
Dawn, and as the sun breaks through the piercing chill of night on the plain outside Coram, it lights up a biblical famine, now in the 20th century. This place, say workers here, is the closest thing to hell on earth.
Bob Geldof, the world knows now that film had huge repercussions.
That night I stayed up most of it just with those images in my head, and I just really didn't know what to do, and my band were not having hits. And the only thing I could contribute maybe was a song, but it would be pointless if my lot did it because it wouldn't be a hit. And I called Paula, who was up at the Tube, and I said, who's there, who's doing it this week? And she said Midge, and Midge was a friend of ours anyway, and so that was perfect. And he came on, and I was embarrassed because it's naff, you know, like I'm not having hits, he's having mega hits, and I'm saying, trying to suggest that a song happens. And he said, well, immediately, who's going to do it? Are you going to write it? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, you write a bit and I'll write a bit and see if it works. So instant solution without me being embarrassed. And within a day of the Tube, this tape came over, and I put it on. I thought, geez, that's quick, you know. And I was sort of mortified that I had to respond with something. And he put it on, so I had to find something to say that was negative to put him off being so enthusiastic, you know. And this little tune came out, do 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 do, and I thought, it's Z Cars, you know. So I rang him up. I said, what are you doing? That's Z Cars. He says, not Z Cars, it's the Dam Busters.
Together you come up with Do They Know It's Christmas, the UK's biggest selling record ever. Band Aid raised £9 million for famine victims, and one of the famous voices from that legendary recording was Paul Young. Paul, you would say Midge is a good man to work with?
I always thought that working with musicians is a lot like working with children, you know, so... and I think the best way to raise kids is you have to have a good policeman and a bad policeman. You were always a good policeman.
After the unbelievable achievement of Band Aid comes an even more amazing event, Live Aid. In July 1985, the Live Aid concert is watched by 1.4 billion people in 170 countries. It raises more than £75 million for famine relief, which still holds the record as the most money raised for charity by a single event. And now we go over to the BBC News studio to hear from the man whose report inspired the world's first pop music crusade, Michael Burke.
Hi, Midge. When I was filming those famine reports in the highlands of Ethiopia, what really worried me was that all the things I was feeling, how could I possibly get those across to people who were experiencing this through a television set in the corner of their own room, not seeing it, touching it, smelling it, tasting it as I was, and feeling the things that I felt. Now, actually, that did get across, and it got across for two reasons. First of all, I think the compassion and empathy of millions of ordinary people. But then on top of that, the fact that people like you and Bob and a handful of others really began to really pick up that ball and feel that you could do something about it and really generate the interest and really sweep it all up and make it into something. The money you raised is one thing, but it was the consciousness and that feeling of being able to really have an effect that made a big difference. So there are millions of people in the highlands of Ethiopia who are alive, who wouldn't have been alive, but for what people did in 1984, what people like you did. They've got a lot to thank you for. And I hope you have a great night.
The Midge Ure story continues. In 1987, you and Annabelle break up. 3 years later, Sheridan comes into your life. Home for you is a 14th century farmhouse in Wiltshire. Daughter Kitty arrives in 1994, Ruby 3 years later, and Florence in 1999. So you're the father of 4 daughters. Molly, you're the eldest. Have you got plans?
Yeah, so after my GCSEs, Daddy doesn't know this, I want to go to Australia to go and be an au pair, and then I want to come back. And my dream would be to go to RADA and become an actress.
And look after your old father.
Kitty, what would you like to do?
Well, I play the piano. I like horse riding and ballet, but when I grow up, I'll be an actress.
Of course you will.
I have no doubt.
Well, Midge, as well as building a family, you consolidate your position as a solo artist, producing 7 albums, including the #1, If I Was. You also write music for films and television. You become a sought-after record producer and act as musical director for the Prince's Trust. In 1996, your hit album, Breathe, goes platinum in Europe, and you tour America with Ireland's greatest folk band, the Chieftains. It is the chieftain-in-chief himself, Paddy Maloney. Paddy, do you remember anything at all about that tour?
He wasn't drinking on that tour. Well, he was on some special diet and he couldn't drink.
Let me say when Midge arrived, you know, he was in topping form, let's put it that way. Composed a whole lot of lovely tunes you did on your computer. Yeah, and when you got to Denver, it was a wet night, if I remember.
That's right.
Wet outside, and it was a bit wet on the inside as well. But what a time we had, and never forget it. Never forget it. Yeah.
Until the morning that you'd left me in a hotel room and went on to the next venue, and I woke up with no one kind of phoning me up and saying, "Midge, we're ready to go yet." You know, it's like... So I look at my watch and go, I've missed the plane, I've no idea where I'm going. I got there, though.
It got there.
I got there.
Fair play to you. Fair play
I'm trying to give him a hint, obviously, but there we are. Paddy, thank you very much. In 1998, you perform in front of 500,000 people at the reopening of the Potsdamer Platz area in Berlin. Among your projects last year was a concert with a man who holds a unique place in the annals of pop music, Sir George Martin.
Hello, Midge. You've had such a great musical career, and I'm privileged to have been part of it. I've enjoyed working with you enormously, and particularly in Montserrat, where we made that album together. Do you remember? And you brought a home there. But I'm sure that most people don't realise just how much hard work you've put in to charity events all your life. All the time you seem to be doing things for other people. And of course, you helped me when we tried to help the people of Montserrat with that wonderful Albert Hall concert. And quite recently, you've been working with me too. So I'm very grateful to you for all you've done. And I'm sure everyone out there is grateful for your music too. I shall raise my glass to you. Lots of love.
16 years on, the Live Aid offices are closed and all its money dispersed. The £84 million you raised was used to fund projects all over Africa. One man who knows more than most about the hope you gave to the hungry is the head of the Ethiopian Support Committee, Yellow Kabede. Yellow, what would you like to say?
I just want to say to you and Sir Bob Geldof, thank you for your commitment, dedication and support at that critical time. And I just want to say also, thank you for the people of Britain. You and Sir Bob Geldof, you have a very special place in the hearts of many Ethiopians. Thank you.
Thank you. Midge, as we've heard, you've made a huge difference to the lives of many families, and of course family means a lot to you. Here to complete the Ure clan are your two youngest children. With their grandparents Lynn and Mike Forbes, your daughters Ruby and Florence.
Hello, sweetheart. Hello. Come up.
Midge Ure, this is your life.
Thank you.
Everything crossed. The lottery's next on BBC One. Then, Are You Too Old to Drive? The first of a new series, Mean Street, checks out how fit we are and if we're fit enough to be on the roads. That's in 5 minutes.